Maya had been driving this same route home for 3 years now. Every evening after her shift at the community center, she would take Maple Street through the quiet neighborhood where she lived. Today felt different, though. The sun was setting, earlier than usual, casting long shadows across the road. She was tired after spending the day helping teenagers with their college applications and mediating family conflicts. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mom asking about dinner plans. But Maya kept her eyes on the road. She had learned discipline during her 8 years in the Navy, and that discipline stayed with her even in civilian life. No texting while driving, no matter what. She would call her mom back once she got home. The blue and red lights appeared in her rearview mirror out of nowhere. Maya felt her heart skip a beat, not from guilt but from experience. She had been pulled over twice in the past year in this same neighborhood, both times for reasons that seemed questionable. Once for supposedly speeding when she was going exactly the speed limit. Another time for a broken taillight that worked perfectly fine. Maya pulled over slowly, making sure to use her turn signal and park well away from traffic. She rolled down her window, placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen, and waited. These were things her father had taught her when she was 16, lessons that felt more important now than they did back then. Officer Derek Matthews approached her car with heavy footsteps. Maya could see him in her side mirror, and something about his body language made her uneasy. His shoulders were tense, his jaw was set, and he was walking with the kind of aggressive stride that meant trouble. "License and registration," he said, without any greeting. His voice was cold and demanding. "Good evening, officer," Maya replied calmly, keeping her voice steady and respectful. "May I ask what I was pulled over for?" Matthews stepped closer to her window, and Maya could smell coffee and something else on his breath. "Just give me your license and registration, don't ask questions." Maya felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. She had dealt with difficult people during her military service, and she recognized the signs of someone looking for a confrontation, but she also knew how to stay calm under pressure. "Of course, sir. I'm going to reach into my glove compartment for my registration and then into my purse for my license. I'm telling you this so you know what I'm doing." She moved slowly and deliberately, keeping her movements visible. Maya had learned in the Navy that clear communication could prevent misunderstandings that might escalate into dangerous situations. She handed over her documents with steady hands. Matthews looked at her license for a long time, longer than necessary. Maya could see him in her side mirror, and she noticed he kept glancing back at her car, then at her, then at the license again. "Maya Rodriguez," he said, pronouncing her last name wrong despite it being clearly written on her license. "You live around here?" "Yes, sir, just 2 blocks away on Oak Street." "What do you do for work?" Maya hesitated. She didn't think he had the right to ask that question during a traffic stop, but she also didn't want to escalate the situation. "I work at the community center downtown. I help kids with after-school programs." Something shifted in Matthews's expression, and not in a good way. Maya had seen that look before during her time in the service. It was the look someone got when they had already decided you were the enemy. "Step out of the vehicle," Matthews ordered. Maya felt her pulse quicken. "Sir, may I ask why? What violation did I commit?" "I said step out of the vehicle. Now." Maya's military training kicked in. She assessed the situation quickly and calmly. There were no other cars around. The street was empty. Matthews's hand was resting on his belt, close to his weapon. She could comply and hope for the best, or she could ask for clarification and risk making things worse. "Officer, I'm happy to cooperate, but I believe I have the right to know what law I've broken. I was driving the speed limit, my car is properly registered, and my license is valid." Matthews's face darkened. "Are you refusing to comply with a lawful order?" "No, sir. I'm just asking for clarification so I can better understand the situation." That's when everything went wrong. Matthews yanked her car door open so hard that Maya thought it might break. "Get out now." Maya unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out slowly, keeping her hands visible. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed maybe 130 pounds. Matthews was at least 6 feet tall and probably outweighed her by 80 pounds. But Maya had learned long ago that size wasn't everything. Confidence, training, and keeping your head clear mattered more. "Turn around, hands on the car," Matthews barked. Maya complied, placing her palms flat against the roof of her Honda. She could feel Matthews standing too close behind her, invading her personal space in a way that felt deliberately intimidating. "What do you have in your pockets?" "Just my phone and some cash, sir." Matthews roughly patted her down, far more aggressively than necessary. Maya bit her tongue and endured it, knowing that any reaction could be used against her. But when his elbow hands lingered inappropriately, she spoke up. "Officer, I don't believe that level of search is necessary for a traffic stop." That's when Matthews lost control completely. "Don't tell me how to do my job," he snarled, and before Maya could react, his hand struck her across the face. The slap echoed in the quiet evening air. Maya's cheek stung, and she tasted blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. But more than the physical pain, she felt a cold rage building inside her chest. For 8 years in the Navy, Maya had been trained to respond to threats. She had served 2 tours overseas, had been in situations where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. She had been trained to neutralize threats quickly and efficiently, but she had also been trained in discipline, in choosing when to act and when to restrain herself. As Matthews raised his hand again, Maya's body moved before her mind could fully process what was happening. Years of combat training took over. Maya pivoted smoothly, deflecting Matthews's second attempted strike while simultaneously grabbing his wrist. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back and guided him face first against her car. The entire movement took less than 3 seconds. Matthews found himself pinned against the Honda, his arm locked behind him in a position that would cause immediate pain if he tried to struggle. Maya's voice was steady and calm when she spoke, despite her heart racing. "Officer, I am a United States Navy veteran and you just committed assault. I am restraining you to prevent further violence and I am not trying to hurt you, do you understand me?" Matthews tried to struggle, but Maya's grip was precise and unbreakable. She had been trained by some of the best instructors in the military, and she knew exactly how much pressure to apply to control someone without causing permanent damage. "Let me go right now, or you're going to jail for assaulting an officer," Matthews threatened, but his voice cracked with panic. Maya reached into her pocket with her free hand and pulled out her phone. With her thumb, she managed to start recording a video. "I'm recording this interaction for both of our protection," she said calmly. "You struck me first, officer. I'm defending myself within my legal rights, and I'm going to call for your supervisor now." The street was still empty, but Maya knew that wouldn't last forever. Someone would drive by soon, or a neighbor might look out their window. She needed to handle this situation before it got any more complicated. But as she held Matthews against her car, waiting for him to calm down enough that she could safely release him, Maya realized that this moment was going to change everything. There would be no going back to her quiet life after this. The video on her phone would either save her or destroy her, and she wasn't sure which one it would be. Matthews was breathing heavily against the hood of Maya's car, his face pressed against the cool metal. Maya could feel his muscles tensing as he tried to figure out how to get out of this situation. She had seen this reaction before during her military service. The moment when someone realizes they've made a terrible mistake and panic starts to set in. "Officer Matthews," Maya said, reading his name tag while keeping her voice calm and steady. "I'm going to release you now, but I need you to understand something first. I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want this situation to get worse for either of us." She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, but her hands remained steady. 8 years of military training had taught her how to stay focused even when adrenaline was pumping through her system. The key was breathing slowly and thinking clearly. "You can't do this to me," Matthews said, his voice muffled against the car. "I'm a police officer. You're going to prison for this." Maya applied just a tiny bit more pressure to his wrist, not enough to hurt him, but enough to remind him who was in control right now. "Officer, you struck me first. Everything that happened after that was self-defense. My phone is recording everything, and I'm sure there are security cameras on some of these houses." She was right about the cameras. Maya had noticed them during her evening walks through the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen across the street had installed one after her car was broken into last month. The house on the corner had a doorbell camera that faced the street. If this incident went to court, there would be evidence. Listen to me carefully, Maya continued, her voice taking on the tone she used when counseling troubled teenagers at the community center. Firm, but not threatening. I'm going to let you go, and then we're going to have a conversation like two adults. But if you try to hit me again, I will defend myself again, do you understand? Matthews nodded slightly, and Maya could feel some of the tension leave his body. She slowly released the pressure on his wrist and stepped back, giving him space to turn around. But she remained in a ready position, balanced on the balls of her feet, hands loose at her sides. Matthews turned around, and Maya could see something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Fear, not just fear of her, but fear of what he had done. His hand went instinctively toward his radio, but then he stopped. Go ahead and call it in, Maya said, holding up her phone so he could see she was still recording. Tell them exactly what happened. Tell them you pulled me over for no clear reason, demanded I get out of my car, searched me inappropriately, and then struck me across the face. Matthews's hand dropped away from his radio. Maya could practically see the wheels turning in his head as he tried to figure out how to explain this situation to his supervisor. You don't understand, he said, his voice much quieter now. You were acting suspicious. How was I acting suspicious? Maya asked, genuinely curious. I pulled over when you signaled me. I kept my hands visible. I spoke respectfully. I followed every instruction you gave me until you decided to assault me. Matthews looked down at his feet. Maya had seen this reaction before too, usually in her teenage clients when they realized they couldn't justify their actions anymore. The bluster was gone, replaced by the uncomfortable reality of what they had done. I've been having a bad day, Matthews mumbled. Maya almost laughed, but she managed to keep her expression neutral. A bad day doesn't give you the right to hit people, officer, you know that. A car was approaching from down the street, headlights cutting through the growing darkness. Maya tensed slightly, not sure if this would help or hurt her situation. The car slowed as it passed them, and Maya could see an elderly man behind the wheel, his face curious about what was happening. Wave at him, Maya told Matthews. Show him everything is fine, because if you don't, and he calls 911, this situation is going to get a lot more complicated for both of us. Matthews raised his hand in a half-hearted wave, and the car continued on its way. But Maya knew their time was running out. Sooner or later, someone was going to notice a police car with flashing lights and come to investigate. Here's what's going to happen, Maya said, taking control of the situation. You're going to give me your badge number and your supervisor's name. I'm going to file a formal complaint about your conduct tonight, and then we're both going to go our separate ways. You can't file a complaint, Matthews said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Who's going to believe you over a police officer? Maya held up her phone again. They're going to believe the video evidence, and they're going to believe my military service record, and they're going to believe the pattern of complaints that I'm betting you already have in your file. Matthews' face went pale. Maya had hit the mark. She had seen his type before. Bullies who thought their uniform gave them permission to treat people however they wanted. But bullies usually had a history, and that history eventually caught up with them. Look, Matthews said, his tone changing completely. Maybe we can work something out here. Nobody got seriously hurt, right? It was just a misunderstanding. Maya shook her head. Officer, you assaulted me during a traffic stop. There's no misunderstanding about that. The only question now is whether you're going to cooperate with the investigation that's going to happen, or if you're going to make things worse for yourself. She could see Matthews trying to calculate his options, trying to figure out if there was a way to make this all go away. But Maya had been in enough difficult situations to know that the cover-up was usually worse than the crime. I want to speak to your supervisor, Maya said firmly. Right now, call them and tell them to come here. I can't do that, Matthews said quickly. Sergeant Rodriguez is going to want to know why I called him out here, and I don't know how to explain. Maya raised an eyebrow. Sergeant Rodriguez? Any relation to me, you think? Matthews looked confused for a moment, then glanced down at Maya's license, which he was still holding. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "Different Rodriguez," Maya said with a slight smile. "But I bet he's not going to be happy when he finds out one of his officers assaulted a veteran during a routine traffic stop." The reality of his situation was finally sinking in for Matthews. Maya could see it in his face. The moment when someone realizes that their actions have consequences they can't control or fix. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. Maya thought about it for a moment. She could demand his badge right now. She could threaten to ruin his career. She could make him suffer the way he had tried to make her suffer. But that wasn't who she was. "I want you to do your job properly," she said finally. "I want you to treat people with respect. And I want you to remember this moment the next time you think about using your authority to hurt someone who can't. Fight back." Matthews nodded slowly, and Maya could see something like shame in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Now, call your supervisor," Maya said, her phone still recording. Because this conversation is far from over. Maya was sitting in her kitchen at 2 a.m. staring at her phone. The video had been uploaded to social media 6 hours ago, and the view count was climbing faster than she could refresh the page. 12,000 views, 15,000, 20,000. Her hands were shaking as she watched the numbers grow. She hadn't meant for it to go viral. After Sergeant Rodriguez arrived at the scene and took both their statements, Maya had simply wanted to document what happened. She posted the video with a simple caption, "This is what happened to me tonight during a traffic stop in my own neighborhood." She thought maybe a few friends would see it, maybe her family, but her friend Lisa from the community center had shared it. Then Lisa's friends shared it. Then complete strangers started sharing it. Now Maya's phone was buzzing every few seconds with notifications she couldn't keep up with. The comments were overwhelming. Some people were calling her a hero. Others were saying terrible things about her and making assumptions about what really happened. Some were sharing their own stories of similar encounters with police. Reading them made Maya's chest feel tight. Her phone rang, startling her out of her thoughts. The caller ID showed her mom's number. "Mija, I just saw the video." Her mother's voice was filled with worry. "Are you okay? Why didn't you call me right away?" Maya closed her eyes and rubbed her forehead. "I'm fine, Mom. I didn't expect this to happen. The whole family is talking about it. Your cousin Pedro shared it on his Facebook. Your Aunt Carmen called me crying. She's so proud of you, but she's also scared." "Scared of what?" "Maya, you embarrassed a police officer. On camera, do you know what that means?" Maya did know, but she didn't want to think about it. She had seen enough news stories to understand that sometimes speaking up against police misconduct came with a price. But she also knew that staying silent hadn't been an option. "I did what I had to do, Mom." "I know, baby. I'm proud of you too, but I'm also worried." After hanging up with her mother, Maya tried to get some sleep, but it was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Matthew's face when he realized he had made a mistake. She kept thinking about what might have happened if she hadn't had military training, if she hadn't been able to defend herself. The next morning, Maya's phone was ringing before her alarm went off. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. "Is this Maya Rodriguez?" The voice belonged to a woman who sounded professional but tired. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with Channel 7 News. I was wondering if you'd be willing to do an interview about what happened last night." Maya sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. I don't know. I haven't really thought about talking to reporters." "I understand this is overwhelming," Jennifer said gently. "But your story is important. A lot of people are talking about it, and I think it would be helpful for them to hear directly from you." Maya looked at her phone and saw she had 47 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Apparently Jennifer wasn't the only reporter trying to reach her. "Can I think about it and call you back?" "Of course. But Maya, I should tell you, other news outlets are going to want to talk to you too. If you're going to tell your story, you might want to choose who you tell it to." After Jennifer hung up, Maya sat in bed for a long time, trying to process everything that was happening. Yesterday morning, she had been just another person going to work and coming home. Now she was apparently the center of a story that thousands of people were talking about. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor at the community center. "Saw the video. Are you okay? Take the day off if you need to. We support you 100%. Another text, this one from her old Navy unit group chat. "Rodriguez saw you put that cop in his place, hoo-yah." And another from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen. "Honey, I saw what happened on the street camera. If you need me to be a witness, I saved the footage." Maya's eyes widened. Mrs. Chen had footage from her security camera. That meant there was another angle of what happened, proof that Maya's version of events was accurate. She got dressed quickly and walked across the street to Mrs. Chen's house. The older woman answered the door before Maya could even knock. "I've been waiting for you, Mrs. Chen said, ushering Maya inside. "I couldn't sleep all night thinking about what I saw." Mrs. Chen led Maya to her living room where her laptop was open on the coffee table. "I reviewed all the footage from last night. Maya, that officer was wrong from the very beginning. You can see everything. How respectfully you behaved, how aggressive he was, everything." They watched the footage together. From Mrs. Chen's camera angle, Maya could see things she hadn't noticed while it was happening. Matthews had been agitated even before he got out of his patrol car. He had paced back and forth for almost a minute before approaching her vehicle, like he was working himself up for a confrontation. "This shows that you never did anything to provoke him," Mrs. Chen said. "You were completely professional the entire time, even after he hit you." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had been telling the truth, but having video evidence from an independent source felt like a weight being lifted off her shoulders. "Mrs. Chen, would you be willing to share this with the police investigation?" "Already did." The older woman smiled. "I called that Sergeant Rodriguez first thing this morning. He's coming by this afternoon to pick up a copy." Maya spent the rest of the morning fielding phone calls. Reporters, police investigators, friends, family members, and complete strangers who had somehow gotten her number. By noon, she had to turn her phone off just to get some peace. But the story wasn't slowing down. When Maya finally turned her phone back on, she saw that the video had been shared by several celebrities and activists. A local civil rights organization had issued a statement supporting her. The police department had announced they were conducting a full investigation. The most surprising call came just before dinner. It was from a woman named Patricia Williams, who introduced herself as an attorney specializing in civil rights cases. "Maya, I've been following your story, and I think you should know that you're not the first person to have problems with Officer Matthews." "What do you mean?" "I represent 2 other people who have filed complaints against him in the past year. Both cases were dismissed due to lack of evidence, but your video changes everything." Patricia explained that Matthews had a pattern of aggressive behavior during traffic stops, particularly with people of color and women. The complaints had been filed, but without video evidence, they had been difficult to prove. "Your video doesn't just help your case," Patricia said. "It helps everyone who's been victimized by this officer's behavior." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had thought this was just about one bad interaction with one officer having a bad day. But it was bigger than that. "Maya, I think you should consider filing a civil lawsuit. Not just for yourself, but to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." That night, Maya sat in her kitchen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Her mother had come over, along with her sister and her best friend from the Navy. They were all looking at the latest news coverage on Maya's laptop. 24 hours ago I was nobody, Maya said quietly. Now I'm on the evening news. You were never nobody, her mother said firmly. But now the whole world gets to see what we've always known about you. Maya looked at the screen where a news anchor was discussing police accountability and the importance of citizen journalism. Her video had started a conversation that was much bigger than just her own experience. She realized that what happened next wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had ever been treated unfairly by someone in authority. It was about making sure that Matthews couldn't do this to anyone else. For the first time since the incident, Maya felt ready to fight back properly. The police department's internal affairs office looked exactly like Maya had imagined it would. Gray walls, fluorescent lighting, and uncomfortable metal chairs that seemed designed to make people want to leave as quickly as possible. Maya sat across from Detective Laura Kim, who had been assigned to investigate Matthews's conduct. "I want you to know that we're taking this very seriously," Detective Kim said, opening a thick folder on her desk. "Your video has brought some things to light that we probably should have addressed sooner." Maya had been dreading this meeting for a week, not because she was worried about telling the truth, but because she knew how these investigations usually went. Officers protecting officers, cases getting buried, victims getting blamed. "How many other complaints have there been?" Maya asked directly. Detective Kim looked surprised by the question. "I can't discuss specific details of other cases, but I can tell you that your incident has prompted us to review Officer Matthews's entire record." "That's not really an answer." "No, it's not," Detective Kim admitted with a small smile. "But it's the answer I'm supposed to give you. However, I will say this. Your video has given us the evidence we needed to take action we couldn't take before." Maya had learned in the military that sometimes the most important information came from what people didn't say directly. Detective Kim was telling her that Matthews had been a problem for a while, but they hadn't been able to prove it until now. What happens next? Matthews has been suspended pending the outcome of this investigation. We're also reviewing every arrest he's made in the past 2 years, every traffic stop, every report he's filed. Maya felt a knot in her stomach. Every arrest? How many people are we talking about? "A lot," Detective Kim said quietly. "Maya, I've been doing this job for 15 years and I've never seen a case like this. Your video didn't just document one incident. It opened the door to examining a pattern of behavior that we should have caught much earlier." After the meeting with Detective Kim, Maya drove to the community center where she worked. She had been taking time off since the incident, but she needed to check in with her kids. The teenage program she ran had become the most stable part of her life, and she wasn't ready to let that go. When she walked into the center, she was surprised to find the lobby filled with reporters and cameras. Maya tried to back out quietly, but it was too late. Someone had spotted her. Maya Rodriguez, can you comment on Officer Matthews' suspension?" Maya froze. She hadn't known that news of Matthews' suspension had already become public. Suddenly everyone was shouting questions at her. Cameras were flashing and microphones were being pushed toward her face. "I'm just here to check on my students," Maya said, trying to push through the crowd toward the elevator. "Do you think Matthews should be fired? Are you planning to sue the police department? What message do you have for other victims of police brutality?" Maya made it to the elevator and pressed the button repeatedly, willing the doors to open faster. When they finally did, she practically dove inside. On the 3rd floor, Maya found her supervisor Tony waiting for her. "I'm sorry about that circus downstairs," Tony said. "We tried to keep them out, but they said they were on public property." "It's okay. I should have expected it." "Maya, we need to talk." They went into Tony's office, and Maya could tell from his expression that this wasn't going to be a pleasant conversation. "The center's board met yesterday," Tony began. "They want you to take a leave of absence until this whole situation dies down." Maya felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "They want me to leave?" "Not permanently, just until the media attention goes away. They're worried that having you here is going to disrupt the programs and make the kids uncomfortable." "Tony, these kids trust me. Some of them are dealing with their own problems with police. If anything, they need to see that someone is willing to stand up for what's right." "I agree with you," Tony said sadly. "But I don't make the decisions. The board is worried about funding, about political pressure, about losing donors who might not agree with what you did." Maya stared at Tony for a long moment. "What I did? You mean defending myself when a police officer assaulted me?" "Maya, you know I support you 100%. But some people see the video differently. They see a civilian putting a police officer in a restraining hold and they don't like it." Maya left the community center feeling more alone than she had since the whole thing started. She sat in her car in the parking lot watching the reporters. pack up their equipment, and wondered if fighting back had been worth it. Her phone rang. It was Patricia Williams, the civil rights attorney. "Maya, I have some news. Matthews has been officially terminated from the police department." Maya felt a surge of mixed emotions, relief that he couldn't hurt anyone else, but also a strange sadness. She had never wanted to destroy anyone's career. She had just wanted to be treated with respect. "There's more," Patricia continued. "5 other people have come forward with complaints against Matthews since your video went public. We're talking about a federal civil rights investigation now." 5 other people? 2 women who were sexually harassed during traffic stops, a teenager who was beaten during an arrest for a minor drug possession charge, an elderly man who was roughed up during a welfare check, and a veteran like yourself who was assaulted during a routine stop. Maya closed her eyes. Each of those cases represented someone who had been hurt the way she had been hurt, or worse. Someone who had gone home scared and humiliated and probably never told anyone what happened. "Maya, your video didn't just save yourself. It saved other people from becoming his next victims." That evening, Maya was surprised to get a visit from Detective Kim. The detective stood on Maya's doorstep looking tired and older than she had that morning. "I wanted to update you personally," Detective Kim said when Maya invited her in. "The investigation is expanding beyond just Matthews. We're looking at his training officers, his supervisors, anyone who should have been paying attention to his behavior." They sat in Maya's living room, and Detective Kim looked around at the family photos on the walls, the military commendations in frames, the books about child psychology on the coffee table. "Can I ask you something?" Detective Kim said. "Why didn't you just let it go? Most people in your situation would have taken the settlement money and moved on quietly." Maya thought about the question seriously. "Because it wasn't just about me. When I was in the Navy, we had a saying, 'You leave no one behind.' That doesn't just apply to combat. If I stayed quiet, Matthews would have hurt someone else. Maybe someone who couldn't defend themselves the way I could." Detective Kim nodded slowly. "The department is going to change how we handle these situations going forward. New training procedures, better oversight, mandatory body cameras for all traffic stops. Will it actually change anything, or will people just find new ways to hide the same behavior?" "I don't know," Detective Kim admitted. "But I know that what you did made it impossible for us to ignore the problem anymore. Sometimes that's how change happens. One person refuses to back down, and it forces everyone else to face reality." After Detective Kim left, Maya sat on her couch and thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 weeks. She had lost her job, at least temporarily. She had become the center of a media storm she never wanted. She had been called both a hero and a troublemaker, sometimes by the same people. But 5 other victims had found the courage to speak up because of her video. Matthews couldn't hurt anyone else, and maybe, just maybe, the next person who got pulled over in her neighborhood would be treated with the respect they deserved. Maya looked at her phone and saw dozens of messages from supporters, from other victims, from people thanking her for having the courage to fight back. She realized that she wasn't alone after all. She was part of something bigger now, something that might actually make the world a little bit safer for everyone. 3 months had passed since that night on Maple Street, and Maya was standing in front of a room filled with police recruits. She never would have imagined this moment when she was sitting in her car, hands shaking as she uploaded that video to social media. "How many of you joined the police force because you wanted to help people?" Maya asked the group of 30 young men and women sitting in front of her. Almost every hand went up. "Good," Maya said with a slight smile. "That's exactly why I joined the Navy, and it's exactly why I work with teenagers in my community. We all want to make the world a better place." Captain Rodriguez, no relation to Maya, despite sharing the same last name, had approached her 6 weeks ago with an unusual request. The police department was completely overhauling their training program in response to the federal investigation that had grown out of Maya's case. They wanted her to help design a new course on de-escalation and community relations. At first, Maya had said no. The wounds were still too fresh, the anger still too real. But then she met some of the new recruits who were starting the academy, and she realized that most of them were good people who genuinely wanted to serve their communities. They deserved better training than Matthews had received. What I'm going to teach you today, Maya continued, comes from 8 years of military service and 15 years of working with people in crisis situations. The most important lesson is this: your uniform doesn't make you powerful. Your training, your discipline, and your ability to treat every person with respect, that's what makes you powerful. In the back of the room, Maya spotted Detective Kim, who had become an unexpected ally over the past few months. Kim was taking notes, even though she had probably heard Maya give this presentation a dozen times already. "Let me tell you about the night I met Officer Matthews," Maya said, and the room fell completely silent. Maya had told this story many times now, to investigators, to reporters, to community groups, and to these police recruits, but it never got easier. She could still feel the sting of that slap, still remember the rage that had built up inside her chest. "I could have seriously hurt Officer Matthews that night," Maya said when she finished describing the incident. "My military training taught me how to neutralize threats quickly and efficiently, but it also taught me restraint. It taught me to use only the minimum force necessary to protect myself." A young recruit raised her hand. "What if he had tried to arrest you after you restrained him?" "That's exactly what I was worried about," Maya admitted. "But I realized that getting arrested for defending myself was better than letting him hurt me or someone else. Sometimes doing the right thing means accepting that there might be consequences." After the training session, Maya walked through the police academy hallways with Captain Rodriguez. The captain was a veteran officer who had been brought in specifically to reform the department's culture. "The federal investigators released their final report yesterday," Captain Rodriguez told her as they walked. "Matthews wasn't the only problem officer we had, but your case was the catalyst that allowed them to clean house properly." Maya nodded. She had heard bits and pieces of the investigation's findings over the past few months. 7 officers had been terminated. 12 more had been suspended and required to undergo additional training. The entire department's policy manual had been rewritten. "How do you feel about that?" Captain Rodriguez asked. Maya thought about the question seriously. Sad, mostly. Sad that it took someone filming their own assault to make these changes happen. Sad for all the people who were hurt before anyone was willing to listen. They stopped in front of a bulletin board covered with photos of new academy graduates, young faces full of hope and determination to make a difference in their communities. "But hopeful too," Maya added. "These new officers are getting better training than Matthews ever did. Maybe that means they'll make better choices." That afternoon, Maya returned to the community center for the first time since her forced leave of absence. The board had quietly asked her to come back after the federal investigation validated everything she had said about Matthews. They never formally apologized for making her leave, but Maya hadn't expected them to. When she walked into her usual classroom, she found it packed with teenagers who had been waiting for her return. Some of them were her regular students, but others were new faces. Miss Rodriguez called out Destiny, a 16-year-old who had been struggling with anger management issues before Maya left. "We missed you so much." "I missed you too," Maya said, and meant it. Working with these kids had always been the part of her job that made everything else worthwhile. "Is it true that you made that cop apologize?" asked Kevin, a 17-year-old who had his own negative experiences with police. "Officer Matthews was fired for his behavior," Maya said carefully. "But he never apologized to me personally." "Do you wish he had?" asked another student. Maya thought about that question. In the months since the incident, she had wondered what she would say to Matthews if she ever saw him again. She had heard through Detective Kim that he had moved to another state and was working in private security now. "I think I would have appreciated an apology," Maya said finally. Not because it would change what happened, but because it would mean he understood why what he did was wrong. The kids peppered her with questions about the video, about testifying to federal investigators, about being on the news. Maya answered honestly, but tried to steer the conversation toward more important things. "The most important lesson from all of this," she told them, "is that you have the right to be treated with respect by everyone, including police officers. But you also have the responsibility to treat others with respect, even when they're not treating you well." After the kids left, Maya sat alone in her classroom, grading papers, and thinking about how much her life had changed. Her phone buzzed, with a text message from an unknown number. "Maya, this is Officer Johnson from the 3rd Precinct. I just wanted you to know that I watched your training video, and it helped me handle a difficult situation today without anyone getting hurt. Thank you." Maya smiled and saved the message. She had been getting texts like this more and more often, from police officers who had seen her training materials, from people who had filed their own complaints against problem officers, from parents whose kids had been inspired by her story. Her phone rang, and Maya saw it was Patricia Williams, her attorney. "Maya, I have some good news. The city has agreed to settle the civil rights lawsuit. It's a substantial amount, and more importantly, they've agreed to implement all the policy changes you requested." Maya felt a weight lift off her shoulders. The lawsuit had never been about money for her, but the policy changes would help prevent what happened to her from happening to others. "There's something else," Patricia continued. 3 other cities have reached out asking if you'd be willing to help them review their police training programs. Your work here is getting national attention. Maya looked around her classroom, at the posters encouraging kids to pursue their dreams, at the photos of former students who had gone on to college or military service or good jobs. "Can I think about it?" Maya asked. "I don't want to give up working with these kids." "Of course, but Maya, you should know that what you're doing is bigger than just one community now. You're helping to change how police departments across the country think about training and accountability." That evening, Maya drove home on Maple Street, the same route she had taken that night 3 months ago. She passed the spot where Matthews had pulled her over, where everything had changed. But as she drove, Maya noticed something different. There was a new police car parked at the community center, and she could see an officer inside talking with some teenagers who were hanging out in the parking lot. The kids didn't look scared or defensive. They were laughing and seemed comfortable. Maya pulled over and watched for a moment. The officer was young, probably one of the recent academy graduates. He was listening intently to whatever the kids were telling him, and his body language was relaxed and friendly. Maybe things really were changing. Maya drove the rest of the way home thinking about the choice she had made that night. She could have stayed quiet, could have let Matthews get away with assaulting her, could have avoided all the media attention and legal battles and life changes that followed. But then that officer might have hurt someone else, someone who couldn't defend themselves the way Maya could, someone who might not have survived the encounter. As Maya pulled into her driveway, she realized that she would make the same choice again. Standing up for what was right hadn't been easy, but it had been necessary, and maybe that was enough.